So today is our final lesson. Congratulations, you've made it this far. But I couldn't finish the marriage lessons without talking about mental health. I like this verse in Isaiah 61:3. To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. I want to make a disclaimer first of all. I'm not a licensed mental health instructor, neither a mental health worker, nor a counselor, nor a doctor, nor a psychiatrist, nor a psychologist. I can't even tell you everything that the Bible says about mental health, but I want to share with you enough. And we have two guests who will come on in a little bit. We want to talk about mental health. Let's face it, many are facing mental health struggles, especially in this hour of COVID. Many of us will face some depression at some point for some reason. Like last week, I wasn't feeling well, and that made me feel a little depressed. And so that might be normal, but for some people, mental health is a struggle. It's no longer accepted to sweep it under the rug, to hide it, to pretend that it doesn't exist. And back in the day, they used to get rid of the person in an institution. It's not viable to do that right now. Ignoring it, not dealing with it, only makes it grow and increase and become more difficult to manage, more difficult to cope with. To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. We see the Bible give a lot of attention to mental health, to depression. And here it's telling us distinctly to appoint those who mourn, appoint to them, set time aside, set them aside with help, give them beauty for what it seems they're dealing with ashes, give them the oil of joy for the mourning that they're experiencing, give them the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. The Bible does attend to mental health. The Bible shows that depression can come from trauma, great stress. We see we see Elisha in the book of First Kings. I'm going to pull this up. He had just finished a great accomplishment, a marvelous accomplishment. And then he found out that Jezebel was after him to kill him. And so it said he went one day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree and prayed that he might die. He wanted to die. That's how depressed he was. He said, "It is enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I'm no better than my fathers." And then he lay down and slept. But notice, the Lord sent an angel to touch him, to feed him. So we see mental health coming from great trauma, abandonment, rejection, rape, incest, hopelessness of circumstances, fear. These are traumatic experiences that can create depression. And then we see in the Bible that depression comes from a spirit of evil. We see Saul had a spirit of evil in him. Let's look at that briefly. Going down to here, and it says, "It came to pass when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took a harp and played with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him. So we see that music can be a source of soothing a depressive situation. We see that dabbling in the new age, in witchcraft, in voodoo, in obia, in chakra, in Freemason, or any secret society, these will release evil spirits that do bring depression. We also see this pass through families. We look at David in the Bible, King David. In the book of 2 Samuel, we see that David's son Amnon fell in love with his sister Tamar, and his love for her was lust. And so a friend told him to do what he wants. He's the king's son. And so he raped her, even though she begged him not to. That brought great depression upon her, caused him to hate her. And then David's second son, Absalom, heard of it, and he ended up killing Amnon for what Amnon did. And it didn't end there. It kept passing through the family, different things where Absalom himself was banned and even tried to overtake his father's throne. So we see that Great Depression can pass in families. We see depression can come from hope deferred in the culture that we live in. I know of a young girl right now who's very lonely, and she just wants to get married so badly that sometimes it puts her in a depressive state. Sometimes hope deferred makes your heart sick. Proverbs 13:12 tells us, but when the longing is fulfilled, it's a tree of life. So sometimes we wait so long for things to be fulfilled that it makes us depressed. So depression can come from many ways. Jesus faced depression. It says he was a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. In Mark 14, it says that his soul was exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. He knew what depression was like. It says in Luke 22:44 that he was in agony, prayed even more earnestly, so much so that his sweat became like great drops of blood falling to the ground. And that's why it says Jesus is touched with the feelings of our infirmities. He was in all points tempted like we were, yet without sin. So he understands. A couple of things before we talk to our guests. It greatly helps to always be aware that fear can cause a lot of depressive issues. Fear is a spirit and it didn't come from God. It says, God has not given to us the spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. So you need to be aware of fear. Fear can result in depression, and fear did not come from God. What comes from God is all good things. All good things. James 1:17 tells us, every good gift, every perfect gift is from above, comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. So we need to be aware that God is good. So even going through a state of depression, these are things that we want to be aware of. We want to always be thankful. Philippians 4:6 tells us we should be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Hey, our guests are on. Could y'all mute your phones for a minute? Thank you. And also, We need to give God thanks in everything. In everything. We necessarily may not be able to give him thanks for everything, but in everything we give thanks, for it is God's will in Christ Jesus for us that we give thanks in everything. These are things that will help us in a depressive state. Now, we've got two guests on today. We've got Tamara, who's a pastor and a counselor, and Wanda, who's a teacher and a single parent. And we want to talk to them about their experience with mental health issues. Hey, Tamara. Hey, Wanda. Are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Wanda. And Tamara, are you on the line? Hello.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Well, we want to talk about mental health. And I've got some guiding questions to help us discuss this. This is a very important topic. I was telling somebody just the other day, if we're sick, like today, I went to the pharmacy to pick up some medicine for a cold. But when it comes to our mental health, there's this stigma, and we don't want to get the help we need, and we need to. And so, why do you think in this hour that we live in that it's important to talk about mental health? That's the first question I want to ask. And I think I'm going to let each of you tell a bit about yourself and the mental health issues that you might be dealing with. See if you can find a quiet spot because we're getting a lot of feedback. So who wants to take this?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I haven't made it home yet, so I'm just calling you from where I'm at. So that's why you're probably getting all the feedback in the background. My name is Wanda Morrison, and I am a single parent. Anxiety and depression for years.
Yeah, we can't hear you. There's like wind or something that prevented the last part of your speech.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you clearly now.
Okay, I said I struggle with depression and anxiety for the last 3 years, and I still see a therapist to this day for help, because even though you've dealt with most of it, it's always still there, and you still always need to talk about it and find new ways to cope with it.
Yes. How about you?
And
Okay. Did you want to add something else, Wanda?
no, I don't.
Okay, Tamara, what about you?
I'm 45. I'm single, pastor and a counselor, and I've been dealing with depression since I was 11 years old, so about 35 years. And
Wow.
yeah, and off and on. Even after becoming a Christian, almost 24 years ago, still dealt with it. Actually, I'm dealing with it right now, and I've been in therapy, I've been in counseling, I've been on medication, and I think it's important that we talk about mental health because there's too many people, especially in our churches, who are suffering in silence because it's not being talked
Hmm. I think so, because I don't hear much talk about it at all.
about.
Well,
Yeah,
you talk about mental health, Tamara, dealing with it since you were 11.
yeah,
And so, of course, it's become a personal issue in your life.
yeah.
If you were speaking to somebody who was going through what you are going through now, what are some of the things that you would tell them?
I would tell them to seek help right away and to be active and not be afraid to reach out to other people, because the thing with depression, if you don't act right away and get the help that you need, it can get worse, and it can get to that place where you start to have, suicidal thoughts, and it can just get to a point where it can really um impair your life. I mean, it can really be a hindrance.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it can immobilize you. It can make it hard for you to have relationships. It can make it hard to keep a job. Just different things. So it can be debilitating if it's not dealt with. Um, and the thing about is depression as a child and depression as an adult look totally different. It's
What
one
do you
thing.
mean?
It's like when you're a child and you're depressed. It for me, I didn't really know that I was depressed. I didn't know. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know until I was in high school
Hmm.
that I was actually depressed. I came across an article in a magazine that was talking about depression and the symptoms, and I had every last one of them. But my parents didn't know anything about depression. So even though I told them, my concerns, that I felt like something was wrong or whatever, they didn't really do anything. I think because they were scared and didn't know. And but again, it can be, detrimental if you wait and don't get help. And I didn't get help until my last year of high school. And I think I was 17 going on 18. I started seeing a psychiatrist,
Hmm.
um, and was on and had started medication. But the thing about it, medication by everybody's different, but for me, medication and therapy are um, important. And unfortunately, I only was on medication. And then my first semester of college, I attempted suicide. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I attempted suicide, and thank God, I didn't succeed. But that's where depression can get if it's not treated, soon, and it's stayed on top of, it can lead to that.
So what I'm hearing you saying, and especially with Wanda being a parent, it's
Mhm.
important that we educate parents.
Yeah,
Symptoms.
yeah.
There is a test that can be taken online, and I'm gonna put the link in the description. It's a free test to give you an
Okay.
idea. Um, for those who are listening and are interested, I'll put all that in the description.
Okay.
But Wanda, tell us a little bit more on your part with mental health
Well,
issues.
I just started by being wanting to be locked up in my room all day, all night in the dark. I
Uh-huh.
would cry all the time for no reason. I one day I went over to my friend's house to help her paint her house, and I just started crying, and I couldn't paint, and I just started to tell her what was wrong with me. And
Hmm.
she was like, okay, you are suffering from depression and you need some help. So she looked on the internet and found this place so that I could go to and get some help. And that wasn't the end of it. As Tamara said, there were months where I wanted to commit suicide. Like I would just even think about it. I mean, I called you a couple of times because I didn't
Hmm.
know what to do and I needed
Hmm.
someone to
Hmm.
talk to, because
Hmm.
all I felt like was, today I don't want to be here anymore.
Hmm.
What's the reason
Hmm.
for me being here? And I'm just crying. I mean, I locked myself away from my kids and then had nothing to do with them.
Uh-huh.
It was
Hmm.
it was a whole bunch of different things. And like she said, if you don't get help, you you can lead to much more than just being depressed. You want to take your life. And it's just crazy. It really is crazy how much a stigma it is when you tell people you're depressed. People tell you that, nothing is wrong with you. And I think that's why a lot of people don't get any help, because when they do talk to some peers and friends and, family, they tell them nothing is wrong with them. They need to just, I was told I need to just suck it up and move along
Yeah.
from a good friend of mine. So, it's kind of hard to want to do something when, this is what society is telling you.
Yeah, definite. You know, that reminds me today, somebody was complaining, and I did tell them, suck it up. And I need to really go back and evaluate that, because I can see from y'all's conversations that she might be suffering from depression.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important that this conversation happens.
Yes.
Um, so
Yes.
Tamra, I know you said you were first aware of it when you were 11, without being aware that it was depression. You knew something was wrong.
Yes.
And with Wanda, you said yours started 3 years ago. Can y'all,
Yes, it
is there a
did.
source? Can you tell, what was your a childhood trauma? Wanda, was yours some traumatic experience in your life?
Yeah, from talking to my therapist, I found out of all the things that have happened to me
Uh-huh.
earlier in life, and also the abuse that I put up with mentally from my kid's dad. All of
Uh-huh.
that played a part in my depression because I never dealt with it at the time. I just, like people would always say, just suck it up and move along. And
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
sucking it up and move along is not the thing to do. The thing to do
No.
is to deal with what you're going through at the moment and getting some kind of resolve to it instead of just leaving it unresolved, because in the end it comes back to bite you, and then you have all this trauma that you're dealing with that you didn't even know you just suppressed, and then once it comes back, it comes back really badly, and then you end up with depression and anxiety.
Yeah. Um, do you think, seeing that you have young children, that you might be looking in their lives to make sure that they are not experiencing mental health issues?
Yeah, I have a daughter, and I do look at signs to make sure that she is not experiencing any of the issues that I am, or
Mm-hmm.
expressing any of the symptoms that I noticed that I had when
Yeah.
this all started.
Wonderful, wonderful. Um, from this question says, how does mental health affect you currently? But you've both expressed that it does affect you currently. It affects relationships.
Yeah.
It affects, Tamara, you said it affects your job or your
Yeah. Being
ability
able
to.
to work.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and talk some more about this as we come to a close. Tell us some more of how those who are listening maybe can say, "Ha, that's what's happening to me. This is what's happening, and I need help." What are some of the things, how you're coping and what's happening that you can share that will be beneficial?
Right off the top of my head, I would say a drastic change in behavior.
Uh-huh.
Like for me, I'm normally a happy, joyous, sweet-spirited person who loves to be around people, laughing, joking, going places, reaching out to people, communicating with them.
Yes.
And all that stops when I'm depressed. When I'm depressed,
Okay.
I go, it's like I'm the opposite. I'm extremely sad. I isolate, I retreat. I don't talk to anybody. I don't want to be around people. It's like a total opposite. So if there's like a drastic change in like behavior,
Yes.
um, that's something to really look at. Like if you normally have a child who is, shy and quiet, and all of a sudden they're, loud and, really, outgoing, watch that, because there's usually something going on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, wow. This has been an eye opener.
Yeah.
What would you want a potential husband to know about mental health as it relates to you before you enter into marriage? And this is for both of you. So,
Please educate yourself. Please, 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 please educate yourself on it.
okay. But what would you want your potential husband to know? So you want him to be educated on it.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
What do you think, Wanda? Um, did we lose Wanda?
Uh,
What probably did.
I just came back. I don't know what happened to the Zoom. I'm in a
Oh,
bad
okay.
area and I'm not getting much of a service.
Okay.
But for
So,
me, I would like my husband to know that what I suffer with is I need help, and that you need to be able to educate yourself in order to help me when I'm going through, and know what signs to look for when I'm going through these things in order to help me. And being open and to accept this is what I need most of all, is that you're open and
mhm.
accepting of what I'm going through, and not to ridicule me for it, or put me down for it. It's just whenever I'm going through this, I need help with it.
Okay. I hear you say put me down. I think that's one area that we need to make mention of. We can't put people down for it. We can't tell them suck it up and move on. We can't tell them. We can encourage them, but there are things we just can't tell them because it's not just something they're making up. It's something they're
exactly.
truly dealing with, like, if I want to put it simply, like a toothache. It's
Right.
you're not pretending, it's there, just constant nagging, nagging, nagging.
Mhm.
And so you can't just tell them put up with it or get over it. They've got to get help. And so we need resources. We need our fingertips with phone numbers. We need a counselor on speed dial. We need help of those who are educated and specially able to help with mental health issues, like therapists.
Mhm.
Would you agree?
Yes, yes, wholeheartedly, yes.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. That's
Mhm.
exactly what we do need.
Is there anything else either of you would like to share that you can think of at this moment that will be beneficial to a couple considering marriage and maybe one partner dealing with mental health issues?
Just be there for them. That's the only thing I can say, is be there for them, because they're going to need your support, and just being there for them will help more than you even know. Just being there for them.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, Pastor Tamara?
Yeah, just to piggyback off what she said, to be there and to be supportive, because again, there's that stigma, and
Yes,
and at the end of the day, we're human beings.
that's
Yes,
right.
we've been given a diagnosis, but we're not the diagnosis. We're people. We're human beings, and
Yes.
we want to be loved, just like anybody else. And so that would be, to piggyback on what she said. Yeah, being there and being supportive and seeing the person and not their, diagnosis.
Well, I want to encourage you to check out some of the resources I'm going to put in the description. Also, back in lesson 12, there's a link to lesson 12.
Okay.
We've got a licensed counselor, Tiara Ruffin, who's an LPC. She shared some very pertinent information, and this is in lesson 10. I want to thank you too for being bold enough, brave enough to to share, especially I know you, Pastor Tamara, you are dealing with this issue right now.
Yeah.
And what would you advise somebody who's dealing with it right now? I mean, putting aside the stigma, putting aside all the people who don't understand, even family members, parents who are close to you, who you hope will understand that don't, what would you advise right now?
Please, two things for the person to not be afraid to get help.
Mm-hmm.
And then second, for the other people, don't be afraid to be educated.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Because in my case, my mom is very open. She's still, she was, very supportive, and so I've been able to talk with her and educate her. So that's
Yes.
important
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times family they're reacting because they just don't know. They don't know what to say. They don't know. And so and sometimes they can say, hurtful things and you feel, unsupported. So it's important that the person gets help, but also that those that are in their life who love them and care about them, that they take the time to educate themselves and find
Yes.
out, what's going on, because that helps. That really helps.
Again,
That's what I would add.
yes, we're wrapping up about marriage, but you can have a wonderful, fulfilling marriage, but we need to be aware that there could be mental health issues to deal with. So I want to thank our guests today, Wanda. Thank you so much. I know that you're on vacation, and thank you for taking the time out to talk with us. For Pastor Tamara, I know this is a dark hour of the soul for you right now, dealing with this.
Yeah.
And my hope is that you come out on the other side with all the help that is available for you.
Yes.
So thank you both so
Yes.
much for talking about this issue. It's
You're welcome.
needed. I want to
Yes.
applaud you and encourage you. I want to applaud that friend, Wanda, who told you you were dealing with depression when you were painting her house. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I want to encourage you to not let this be a stigma, not let this be hidden, to find ways to help people, because it'll help you to put it out there. What's going
Yeah.
on? Why?
Yeah.
How can we get
Yeah.
help? Thank you so much, both of you.
Oh, you're
I
welcome.
really
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Again, we can have a wonderful marriage. God went to great lengths to ensure that we can. But we have to choose to exercise and use our muscles of giving, of caring, of forgiving, and even with mental health issues, getting educated about it.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, a wedding is for a day, but a marriage is for a lifetime. And a great marriage takes work. Even with these mental health issues, it takes work, and we need people to help us who are trained to do so. God will help. Invest in your marriage before it starts. Again, I'll put resources in the description. Um, there's a great online blog, Fresh Day Ahead by Debbie McDaniel. There's a book, I Need to Talk to a Therapist by Tierra Ruffin, LPC. And again, in lesson 10 of this marriage series, Children, she shares some really great insight about mental health issues that can start with children. So God bless you both.
Okay.
Again, I'm so grateful that you took the time out to talk about this important topic. And we'll talk again. God bless you.
Bless you too.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Wanda. Thank you, Tamara.
You're welcome. Thank
All
you.
right, bye-bye. I love you both.
Bye bye. I love you too.